Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of Ohio State Buckeyes Live, coming your way on a Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Two of the very best. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts, 247 Sports. Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop. You know the drill. Leave your comments, your questions, debate topics, trash talk. Just go wild in the comments section, and we will pass it on to these two. And I may weigh in myself. And, of course, consider the Super Chat. We've got two, again, of the best, typically Kevin Noon here as well, that give up their time, their expertise, and please consider that. If you want to contact me and contribute directly on Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, just leave a notation in there that this goes toward Ohio State. All right, Steve, month of June, we knew that it was going to be big, going to be huge in regards to recruiting. You guys have been one of the reasons we'll let everyone know that we've adjusted the schedule now for 3 consecutive weeks. I think it's been is because you guys have attended camps there on campus on Wednesday with recruits on the field. And so we've had to move this to Thursday. So your thoughts about this past week, Steve?
Yeah, they had 2 huge camp days this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. And I know Tony's site, Buckeye Scoop, was covering it, and our site, Bucknuts, were covering it as well. And very impressed with a lot of the guys that we saw there. I was on the sideline yesterday with a high school coach from the state of Ohio, a head coach, and there was 4 national top 50 players who are going to be high school juniors this coming year in the 2023 class. And he's like, these guys really have a way of getting the talent to campus. And there were essentially freaks in every direction that you turned. And so that's a good thing, I think, for Ohio State to continue this largesse that they have going on in terms of recruiting. Specific names on Tuesday, the group was maybe not as good as it turned out to be on Wednesday, but there were a couple of players that were offered on Tuesday. David Hicks, a linebacker from Allen, Texas. He was offered. He's the number 22 player overall in the country from Allen, Texas. He was offered by Ohio State. And also Tampa Jesuit linebacker Troy Bowles. He's ranked 109th nationally. His dad is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, and he's kind of a celebrity assistant coach in the NFL. Everybody knows his name, and them obviously coming off a Super Bowl victory as well. So those 2 guys were very impressive on Tuesday. There was another defensive back. I don't have his name right here in front of me. Last name Denson, who was also offered from the class on Tuesday, and I can look up some stuff on him. But then fast forward to yesterday, and there were 4, count them 4, national top 50 players in the 2023 class, guys going into their junior year, who were at the Ohio State camp yesterday, led by Sonny Styles, ranked number 15 nationally, linebacker, safety prospect, Pickerington Central, which obviously has sent players to Ohio State, and obviously his dad, Lorenzo, everybody knows him, played for the Buckeyes in the mid-'90s. His brother, Lorenzo Jr., signed with Notre Dame this past year, will be a wide receiver for the Fighting Irish. And I saw he tweeted out a billboard that it's got his picture on it from Notre Dame, and it says, "I'm from Ohio, and I picked Notre Dame." What a neat thing to drive along the side of the road and see your picture up on a billboard. They may have given him the location of that, but I assume it's on a road into South Bend because he's probably over there already enrolled and everything. One of our guys, Tom Loy from our Notre Dame site, crystal balled Sonny Styles, the younger brother, to Notre Dame, and Sonny Styles kind of had a chuckle about that when he was asked about it at the camp. I don't think he's close to ready to make a decision. And not only that, he was at Ohio State's camp both Tuesday and Wednesday. He was watching camp on Tuesday because one of his cousins was working out. And then for the second time this month, he was working out himself at Ohio State. So I think his interest in Ohio State is very much real. And I don't think he would mind being a local, I say celebrity, local kind of spearhead person that leads Ohio State. I don't think he would mind the acclaim that would go with that. And he is truly a freak, 6'5", 220 pounds. He could write his ticket tomorrow for whatever he wants to do. Looks like he'll probably play about 10 years in the NFL as well. So he's got a ton of a potential ahead of him. Three other top 50 guys. A.J. Harris, defensive back from Alabama, Phoenix City, Alabama, Glenwood High School, 6'2", 180, and he's ranked 23rd nationally. Kerry Combs spent a lot of time working with him. He's got Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, everybody under the sun after him. And two big guys from New Jersey, Don Bosco Prep, offensive lineman Chase Pisanta, 6'5", 290. He is ranked the number 39 overall player in the class for 2023. And then one more guy, Bellflower, California, St. John Bosco. They had, yes, a Don Bosco Prep guy and a guy from St. John Bosco, one from New Jersey, the other one from California. This one, defensive end Mateo Uiagalelei, who is, I believe, a cousin of the Clemson quarterback of the same last name. This guy, 6'4", 255, ranked number 43 overall nationally, offered by Alabama, Clemson, and everybody under the sun as well. And he was working with Larry Johnson. Chase Pisanis, the offensive lineman from New Jersey, he was working closely with Greg Studerawa. A.J. Harris, the defensive back, he was working closely with Kerry Combs. Sonny Styles, the plays safety at Pick Central, but I think he's going to be closer to the line of scrimmage at the college level. He was working with Al Washington at the Ohio State camp. So that'll give you an idea. Last 2 days, some of the stars that have come through, a few other names, but those are the main ones. And most of the focus seems to be on 2023 guys, it seems, with these camps.
Sonny Styles, it was interesting. He worked out like last week or the week before with Kerry Combs doing some defensive back drills. Then yesterday he's working with Al Johnson doing linebacker drills. Then also spent some time with Larry Johnson working on his pass rush. And I'm with Steve. I think he's going to be moving towards the linebacker. You know, he's listed at 6'5" or something like that, which means he's legitimately 6'3.5", maybe 6'4". But you just don't have those kind of safeties. So I would expect him to eventually be that Ohio State bullet, that hybrid guy, because he's a remarkable athlete and could probably play safety at a number of places and play it well. At Ohio State, they like him in that hybrid role. I believe that's what Notre Dame is talking to him about as well. But he's going to be interesting to watch. The David Hicks, the defensive end that Steve mentioned, also goes by DJ Hicks. I think it would be interesting to have a DJ Hicks and a CJ Hicks on the same defense for Ohio State. I know the play-by-play guys might hate it too much of the DJ CJ stuff going on there, but he was an interesting guy that kind of blew up. And there's so many. There was a 2024 linebacker there out of California, the California Bosco, who I've been told is, one of the best guys the school has had in the last decade, and he's still just a little bit. He was one. I think he may have been the first guy Ohio State offered out of the 2024 class months ago. And so there's just all kinds of guys from all over the country just have been itching to get out of the house, basically. And now you're seeing all of these tours. We saw the European tour last week or the week before, where you're finally getting all of these prospects going to different camps. And now they're making the Midwest tour, and there's 2 more camps, I think, next week, Steve. And then things will slow down until all heck breaks loose in July after the official visits and people start committing and decommitting. So it's been an interesting month, and it's only going to get more interesting next month.
Yeah, I've only heard of the one on Tuesday. Are they doing? I heard there was maybe going to be an all-star camp as well. I don't know if you guys heard of a different date or.
Yeah, I think they were talking about adding another camp next week, just because I don't know if that's the all-star, the invite only quasi Friday Night Lights type of thing. But it's been an incredible success for Ohio State. But I imagine the coaches are ready for a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I think if they were to do that type of thing, I think they would bring back guys who attended the first 5 or 6 one-day camps who they really liked. And then that way you can have, instead of saying, well, I like that guy, but is he as good as the guy we saw a week later? Is he as good as the guy we saw the week after that?
Mm-hmm.
you put them all on the field together and watch them work out and measure them and everything. Of course, you already got the measurements, but just see how they take to it in the one-on-ones and everything else, and you can make comparisons right there on the spot of who deserves an offer and who doesn't. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they do put that type of an all-star type camp together, if they're able to do that in the next several days. I think the month of July, I think the coaches are going to take a lot of time off during the month of July, because that's their last respite before they jump into the season. And I say a lot, each coach may be able to leave the facility for a week or week and a half, and they'll stagger it out, because I'm sure they'll still be doing recruiting related activities as well, even during that month. But I think everything after the end of June is going to be geared toward the start of the 2021 season, where Ohio State is obviously trying to contend again for the Big Ten and the national championship. So they've really, really put the work in terms of the camp and the recruiting, I think, during this month of June.
Ryan Dawes, thank you so much for the super chat contribution there. Sonny Styles, future linebacker, tall enough, just needs to add weight, which is pretty much a storyline for tons of players transitioning from high school to college, regardless of a change of position. Ryan, thank you so much for the super chat. Everyone else, consider super chat, or again, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. If you're going to do that and want to contribute to Ohio State, please just note that for us, please.
And we talked about Styles, both of us did, and I think he would have no problem getting up to 240 in an instant. With the proper weight, looks like he looks like an Adonis out there already. But and I've seen him. He also doubles as a basketball player, plays for one of the top travel teams here in Ohio, and he's a freak on the basketball court. He had a play in a game recently. He cut through two guys and dunked on them, and I was just like, that's Sonny Styles. He's a freak. And then there was another game. Ohio State's offered this 6'9", 6'10" kid from down in the Dayton area, who's a really good post player, and he had fouled out most of Styles' teammates, and so they put him on him at 6'5", and he used his strength to shove that kid out of the block and made it hard for him. He was the one guy who could defend the 6'10" kid in basketball. So he's a freak, guys. What can I say? I mean, he is what he is, and I know some people bristle when you use that word, talking about high school kids or college athletes or whatever, but he is special. And I think the potential is there for him to play special. His dad was I don't recall if he was a first-team All-Big Ten guy, but he definitely had several years in the NFL. I think he was at the Rams for a few years, as I recall, coming out of college. I think he left school early. I think 94, he was a junior eligible, and that goes back to the first year I was full-time covering Ohio State, 95, although I was on the scene, for the 5 or 6 years prior to that. And I even actually did the recruiting profile on Lorenzo Styles. He was from Farrell, Pennsylvania, which is just across the border from Youngstown, and good ties to Ohio, the family. And I believe Sonny had his grandmother at the camp yesterday to watch him work out, and said that day was for her to see him work out at the camp. So, and she was wearing Ohio State stuff too, so that was well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be hard. I think Tom Lloyd could think whatever he wants about Notre Dame landing Sonny Styles, and he did go to the Notre Dame camp maybe Monday or Friday here recently, just last week or something. But I think Ohio State's a team to beat on him. I'll be surprised.
Yeah, Steve, you mentioned him on the basketball court. In basketball, you hear talk about positionless players that can play this, they can play that. I kind of view him as a positionless player on the football field as well, who can do many different things and end up and helping if he is at that bullet, can rush the passer, can drop back as a deep safety at times if needed, just can a jack of all trades, and also perhaps a master of most of those trades as well once he finally rounds into shape. I don't know how quickly he's going to play, though, once he, assuming he comes to Ohio State, because you've got Court Williams, who's the future at that bullet position. So there's going to be some depth things there to watch, but that's a problem you deal with down the road, and you happily deal with it.
Hey, folks, we're talking Ohio State football here every week with Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts and Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop, typically Kevin Noon from Buckeye Grove as well. And we would love to have more people in here. So everybody that loves coming in here for the, whether it be for the live stream or you catch the record, please let your friends and family know, people out on social media know, that love Ohio State football, that we're here every week. And I say every week, meaning that it's typically Wednesday, but you got to hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live because schedules need to change. Sue says, hey guys, keep hearing worrisome things about Jaheim Singletary. I know he said there's nothing to worry about, but a lot of recruiting analysts say there's reason for concern. Of course, he is a commit to the Buckeyes, but yeah, some other teams in the SEC, and I know he went to Miami recently as well.
Yeah, 5-star cornerback out of Florida. Any Florida commit this early, you're going to have to keep working him. Urban Meyer used to say when you get a Florida commit this early, that just means they're interested in you. And I know they're much closer with Jaheim Singletary than just that. But the fact that he's taking visits, yeah, if there was nothing to worry about, he wouldn't be taking visits. And I know Ohio State is aware of it, and they know this is going on, and I'm sure it's probably been expected. But if a kid is still looking around, that means he's looking around. And, he sure is solidly committed to Ohio State, but could be more solid than he apparently is.
Yeah, I know that Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 Sports was on our morning radio show yesterday with Dan Rubin, our publisher, and mentioned that he would be very concerned about Jaheim Singletary perhaps signing somewhere other than Ohio State. Said Florida in particular is going to be a tough one to beat. Miami of Florida may also be involved as well. This is a guy who's ranked number 13 in the 24/7 Sports Composite for 2022. One of the top prospects, obviously, in the Ohio State class. One of the top cornerbacks in the country, 6'1", 170, from Jacksonville, Florida, Lee High School. So, again, I think Kerry Combs, Matt Barnes, Ryan Day are going to have to stay on top of him all the way through and make sure that he signs with the Buckeyes in mid-December. But, again, that's a guy that Ohio State desperately needs. They need to infuse some talent at cornerback, and to me, he is an outstanding player. And backing it up, it sounds like at all these Future 50 and different camps that he's been attending. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
The Walter Camp Foundation has released its All-American list. It includes Chris Olave, Thayer Mumford, and Haskell Garrett on the first team. Dalton Moore a bit upset about Nicholas Petit-Friere and Garrett Wilson being snubbed, which, considering it's a preseason All-American team, I don't know if there's such a thing as being snubbed. Let's let the players perform. I know you want to have a lot of Ohio State players on the team, but that's at least my thought.
Well, Mark, there's only 130 teams in the country, so it can't be all, Ohio State's best guy at every position group can't make the first team All-American team as much as you may like Ohio State. I mean, I have no idea. I'm literally no idea who can play and who can't across 130 teams in the United States. I mean, I know Ohio State's got some good players, and Alabama's going to have some great players. Clemson's going to have some great players. Georgia, Oklahoma, those are probably the top 5 teams. So each of them is probably going to be allotted 2 to 3 guys on these teams, and then you just kind of fill in around the cracks. If anything, I think it's a good thing, something for Garrett Wilson and Nicholas Petit-Friere to aspire to be on the postseason teams and use it as a chip and a motivator to say, oh, you don't think? I mean, I'm looking at some sites, and we brought it up in the past here. Ohio State's got the best position group of wide receivers in the country. Top, if you tried to take a 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 of each position, wide receiver position group, nobody has a better 1 through 6 in the country than Ohio State. Nobody. And in fact, there were some lists that came out that had Olave 1 and Wilson 2 at wide receiver. Just because it wasn't the case on this one specific team from Walter Camp, I don't think it's any reason to get your panties all in a bunch. But whatever. So again, I'm with Mark. I don't put a lot of worry into stuff like this. I mean, at quarterback, everybody's going with Spencer Rattler, and he had a great year at Oklahoma, but I don't know. Is he going to replicate what he did last year? Is it the Clemson kid going to be right there on his heels? I mean, and the North Carolina kid, Howell, and some of these other guys. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you put them in a hat and draw them out for all I give a crap at this point. I mean, preseason.
Exactly. I was going to say, Steve, everybody but the voice of college football, we've got Sam Howell number 1, Spencer Rattler number 2, just for the record there.
I think
good company to be in, though. Your name's being mentioned alongside those guys. Great company to be in.
It's very similar to just the watch list stuff, the preseason All-American stuff. And then you even had the regular All-American stuff last year. Like Shaun Wade was a first-team All-American, but you ask Buckeye fans how he played, they would tell you he should have been benched. So, like, that's after seeing it. The beforehand stuff, you don't get anything for that. You don't get a Buckeye tree in Buckeye Grove. This is the summertime when we're supposed to talk about this and get upset about this stuff. So I understand that. And Nicholas Petit-Frere was fantastic last year, is going to be fantastic, has all the makings of an All-American this year. However, the preseason stuff is so much about, do people know your name? And it's really hard for offensive linemen to be known. Thayer Munford got a little bit known because he came back surprisingly. And so he's out there. Haskell Garrett got shot in the face last year, which helped raise the awareness of him, turned him into an All-American. I would argue that if he didn't have that happen, not enough voters would have known who he was
at his position, especially.
Exactly. As a defensive tackle. And he played very well, but having notoriety helps. Shaun Wade had notoriety because he almost left early the year before and came back. And, he's a 5-star guy. This early, Chris Olave, everybody knows him. Garrett Wilson is kind of getting the short shrift there. I just don't know who else was. Who are the other receivers? I think that would tell you a lot as to why Garrett Wilson did make it, because there are a lot of good receivers out there.
Tough
Wilson
way to get
Olave.
notoriety.
Yeah. Yes.
Wilson's better than Olave?
I like Wilson better than Olave.
See, I'm in the camp that he's not necessarily better now, but I project him to be better. I look at him, he looks prototypical compared to Olave.
And Olave, to say that, I feel like I'm sliding Olave, which I shouldn't, because he may be the best Ohio State receiver ever. I mean, based on what he's been able to do and where he came from, I just if I'm going to throw the ball to one of them on 3rd and 11, I'm going to go to Garrett Wilson.
It's hard to pick one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that at the camp, it's really cool. About a half hour before the camp starts, they queue up the Clemson game, which is like their claim to fame right now, that they thumped the S word out of Clemson last year in the Sugar Bowl in the semifinal. I'm trying to keep it family friendly, but
we do.
So they cue that game up and you hear the call, and it's just like one huge Garrett Wilson play after another. And that game was kind of a testimonial to him and Olave both. Really, Olave came up big and kind of what's the word, where he redeemed himself from the year before. So, those guys, what was routine, and Tony knows this, is that I think they set some kind of Ohio State record for the most consecutive games where two guys had 100 yards receiving, and also the most number of they only played 7 or 8 games. I was going to say the most number of games where two teammates had 100 yards in the same season, in the same game in the same season. But whatever it was, I mean, it was consistently, you could just mark them down each for like 6, 120, 1.5 touchdowns on average every game. And I mean, they would just go out and do it. And against good competition, bad competition. It didn't matter. And obviously, a lot of that was your quarterback, too, because Fields was almost uncanny at times as well, as he became more and more and more in command of what he was doing as well. So, and he was healthy. I think that helped the cause as well. So, you hope for health for both those guys all season. And you also looking, behind them, because here comes Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is ready. He is ready to break out. And then, here comes Marvin Harrison Jr., who looks like he was born on third base. And, Emeka Buka, his reputation precedes him. And certainly Jaden Ballard is also in this discussion as well. So they got some dudes. This zone 6 is pretty good.
Marvin Harrison looks like he was born in the red zone. He's incredibly effective there. I mean, he's going to be special. He's going to be fun to watch. And yeah, like I feel like complimenting somebody. I didn't mean to slight Chris Olave, because he's really, really good. But there's just a lot of good guys there, and it's going to be fun to watch. Assuming Ohio State has a quarterback that can get them the ball.
It's a body type. It's a playing style, because the same thing runs through my mind, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'll say what runs through my mind is that Garrett Wilson looks like he was born to play the position. He just looks prototypical NFL wide receiver. Chris Olave looks like you could put him anyone. And it's not just the way he looks, it's the way he plays the position and played special teams leading into his wide receiver role. The Michigan blocked punt kind of stands out, that this guy's just a gamer. He's just a baller. It's like you could put him at linebacker and he would do okay, or you could put him at running back, give him some carries. Like you could put him anywhere. Kind of guy.
I think Ohio State fans should be thanking their lucky stars that they get to see Chris Olave for a fourth year, because he showed enough to me to say he should be in the NFL, but if he feels he has more he wants to accomplish and more he wants to improve upon, and move his draft stock up, maybe from second round to first round, or whatever it could have been last year to whatever it will be this year, more power to him. I agree with Mark. He was so much more than just a guy who could catch the ball. He was a blocker. He was so great on special teams. And then you think about Wilson. One of the first big plays he ever made was that freak show catch he had against Clemson the year before, where he went up and like 5 feet up in the air and caught that ball. I was actually down there, and in my rotten luck, I'm taking pictures, and the back judge got in the way of the photo. Otherwise, I mean, it's from me to the door right here from how far away I am when he's catching that pass. And I just had an official kind of blocking me on the play. Otherwise, I've got a great image of it. And he's got to be, they talk about vertical leap, 36 inches, 39 inches, whatever. He's got to be several feet above sea level when he's making that play. So, yeah, very impressive.
Not necessarily from a national standpoint, but this is just one publication, Athlon's, when Steve made a comment about comparing Ohio State and just their positional units across the Big Ten. Athlon's has Ohio State ranked number 1 at every positional unit across the board. Then you get to linebacker. They've got the Buckeyes at number 2 to Wisconsin, and then number 2 at defensive back to Iowa. So there's the dominance over the conference.
Let me go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, I do Big Ten ratings every year, positional ratings. I keep it East and West. This year, I went I'm just finished up the quarterbacks. I went with Indiana over Ohio State because we know more about Indiana. I would be totally shocked if – I won't be shocked if Ohio State, if C.J. Stroud or whomever is the first team All-Big Ten quarterback or the Silver Football Award winner. I just think you know more about Indiana's quarterbacks right now. And so for my picks, my ratings, I went Indiana number 1, Ohio State number 2 for now. But I think, we'll see what happens in September, October, November. But there's no proof. There's not enough evidence yet. And I had to do the same thing with when in 2019, Ryan Day's first year. I had to put Jim Harbaugh and James Franklin, rated ahead of him because we just didn't. He has no proof of life basically as a head coach other than those 3 games. It's the catch-22 of doing these sort of things.
The only thing I would throw out there, you talked about the linebacker group maybe being the second best in the Big Ten. Tony, I was talking to one of your cohorts there on the sideline at the camp, and he shall remain nameless. An old friend of mine that I've known a long time, and we were talking, and it just kind of, you always want to play the devil's advocate of, okay, this looks really good, and I'll be interested to see what do the folks out there who are listening think about this. And it's not a popular idea, but Ohio State's defense personnel wise may not be as good as it was last year. Now, the overall end result may turn out to be better. But when you take Tommy Togiai out of that group and Jonathan Cooper out of that group, and the 4 linebackers they're leaving out of that group, and Sean Wade, that's 5 or 6 guys who made a lot of plays. I think I'm missing one of the defensive ends who's gone as well. I can't think who else I'm missing, but at any rate, you're taking a lot of the key guys out of that defense, and you're really hoping that your linebackers are better than they were last year. And as Tony's friend, he put it very bluntly, said, what have I ever seen from Gant, Pope, Craig
Mitchell.
Young, whoever, Mitchell, to say they are going to be better than the group that they just lost? We don't know that. And so, it is what it is. But, perhaps the defense will be improved. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
I think the linebacker situation, I'll see if I put them number 2 or not. I don't know. I got to look at everybody else. But the fact that they're still trying to bring in a transfer there or still talking about it, that's a red flag for me. And to look at now Teote, who has an injury history as long as, Justin Hilliard's almost, and you think that he's an upgrade, that to me is a concern, and it tells you where they are thinking or what they're thinking or where their concerns are.
My dog just popped in.
What's the dog's name?
The dog's name is Quincy. She was a rescue dog. We got her about 2 years ago, and she was a little skittish when we brought her home, but in 2 years, she's become a beloved member of our family. I'll say that. So
she's a good-looking dog.
Pretty good dog people here, I guess.
Yakov 22 tells me I missed his super chat last night. Sorry about that, Yakov. Don't want to do that. So Yakov is telling us, love summer camp coverage. When did it get so big? So we've got a couple veterans here who can go back quite a ways. How does this compare to 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago?
Well, my experience, again, I was part-time covering OSU football till 95. And by that would mean I would go to a lot of the home games, but probably not cover the team away from home, and, dabbled in it. And then full-time from 95 on. It was the summer of 1995, and it was Bill Conley and John Cooper. They'd always run, what they call the kids camp or whatever. It was kind of geared for middle school kids and, maybe a few high school kids and whatever. They didn't make a lot of money off of it. I mean, it wasn't even a money-making venture. It was, I don't know, something that they always did, that colleges always did. They had a youth camp is what they called it. And in that summer, I can't really speak to what they did prior to 95 because I never went. But that summer I went, and they had a kid by the name of David Mitchell from Westerville South who was a defensive back, and he ended up signing with Ohio State. And they offered him out of the camp, and he was going into his senior year. And they worked him out, liked what they saw, and they gave him a scholarship offer, and he committed. And it was unheard of. In those days, you didn't sign till February, and usually didn't commit until after your senior season was over. Occasionally, a guy might commit before his senior season, but it was very rare in the mid-90s. And they would start getting commits when they would have kids in for visits for, say, the Michigan game in November. And then really the commitments started coming, you would get 7 or 8 of them in December, because the first 2 weeks of December after the Michigan game were the big, huge visit weekends. And you'd have 15, 20 kids in for each of those weekends. And then you would, about January the 10th, 17th, 24th, you would have 3 more big visit weekends of 10 to 12 kids, whatever they needed to finish up with. Okay, now we've got our corners and our linemen. We're going to really emphasize on running backs and whatever in January. And that's how the recruiting was phased back then. And what happened the following year in 96 was they got a couple more. Then in 97, 3, 4 more at the summer camp. And it just became a trickle to where by 98, 99, 2000, they were having 10 kids committed before the season started, kind of like what we're seeing now. And so I would say it was in that stretch in the 90s where I think it was, and I don't know that Bill Conley and John Cooper were pioneers by any means with this thing, but they kind of let it be known, if you want an offer from Ohio State to some of these marginal on-the-fence kids from Ohio and from the Midwest, come to our summer camp. I can remember John Cooper saying that over. If you want to get evaluated, be around our coaches, come to our summer camp. He started pounding that drum, and it became a huge thing. And then under Tressel, they had some years where they had upwards of 2,500 kids to 3,000 kids coming through for however number sessions of the camp. And that was an all-encompassing number with middle school, the high school kids, the special team. They did a special teams camp for kickers, punters, and long snappers. They did all this stuff, and it became kind of a cottage industry at that point. And they had to like hire high school coaches and MAC coaches and Division III coaches to help them work it, basically. And now it is where it is today. It's kind of segued kind of out of that to where now it's, we're really just trying to pinpoint this to the best of the best. We don't need to do quantity. We just need to more do quality at this point. And obviously COVID put a big crimp on it as well. Maybe it'll revert back to the cattle calls of years past next year. But, I kind of like where it's been this month, to be honest with you.
It's when Urban started the Friday Night Lights at Florida, and then he brought it to Columbus. I remember because there's only normally 3 camps in June, I believe, and then he had Friday Night Lights in July, but they wouldn't really advertise it because they didn't want everybody showing up, because high school kids can just pay and show up if they want. So you wouldn't be able to find it on the website, and it was kind of invite only, but you can't. But exactly.
But 5-Star Freddie from Florida wants in.
Mm-hmm. And so that's when they would really
we got one spot. He's got to sign up today.
And the fans could go and watch it take place in the shoe. And there would be times you see coaches would start hugging a player, and you're like, oh, that guy just committed. And so you could just watch these guys work out. And then, but this year it's completely different because of COVID. And now they've got so many more. It's like twice the number of camps, I believe. And it's all encompassed in June. And the other thing is official visitors can now work out for an hour with one coach. That's a new rule put in this year because there was no in-person evaluations last year. So the NCAA said, okay, official visitors can work out. And so that's also part of what's going on right now. And we got a note from Ohio State a week or two ago saying, please stop filming the official visit workouts. We don't want, because it's supposed to be one coach per player, and it is, but sometimes you could see another coach in the background, and they didn't want the NCAA thinking that there's 2 coaches at this workout. And so it's crazy right now in terms of the workouts, and there is a bunch to cover, and that's why we're all like June. I've been working on a series I started in May, a daily profile of every Buckeye, just so there'd be stuff to write about in June and July. And there's no need for projects like that because there's plenty of stuff going on right now with the camps and the recruiting.
Everybody wants to know about Mr. JTT, of course, his schedule. So number of comments coming in. I'll go to this comment here. So interesting that Sue says that anything special you guys know about that we are doing to roll out the red carpet for JTT. I heard USC showed him LA from a helicopter ride. which I guess they were commenting, those are all the people down there that are going to be ignoring USC football in favor of the Lakers and Dodgers and everybody else, the NFL.
I'm going to assume they used a helicopter just because that's the only way to get around in LA, because you can't drive anywhere. So that's the only way to do it. And so I don't know that that's special. That's just necessary. Yeah, we got to get the helicopter.
It's too bad we don't have Kevin here to do his Schwarzenegger. Get to the chopper. Yeah, I found that to be really curious. But, when you have a city like Los Angeles, that is kind of cool. You go up in a helicopter and see all the sights in a matter of a 90-minute helicopter ride or whatever. I don't know what Ohio State and Columbus can do to top that. I don't think they have to. I think the opportunity to play at Ohio State, work with Larry Johnson, et cetera, to me, that's probably good enough. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about that. I think they got to have a great visit with him this weekend, and obviously he's going to finish up with his last two with Oregon and Alabama after this, and he'll make his decision on or about July 1st or 2nd or 3rd or whatever, and then it'll be off to the school and so on. So, I don't worry too much about it. It's I think Larry Johnson, very impressive person when you get to know him, and he doesn't lose many of these battles. So I think I think Ohio State will put its best foot forward. As one of the commenters had on here, CJ Hicks, great ambassador for Ohio State, even though he's a year younger than JT, is committed and will be making his official visit this weekend. And my guess is they'll spend a lot of time together, and CJ will be talking to him about what makes Ohio State such a special place. And obviously Jack Sawyer will probably be involved as well, who's now been on campus for over 6 months. So, they're going to be fine. I don't worry about it. Hey, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So there it is.
Yeah, part of that red carpet rollout will be Ryan Day explaining Ohio State's name, image, and likeness plans. Another part of it will be them explaining, and Larry Johnson explaining, here's what Chase Young is making. Here's what Nick Bosa has made. Here's what Joey Bosa has made. Here's what their next contracts will look like, because they're still all under their rookie contracts, and the next contracts will be in the, the $100 million range. And this is,
I don't know if Joey has signed his second contract yet or not. I vaguely recall maybe he's on a second time deal, and he's making the big money, I think.
Yeah, because it's 5 years. He the team option for the 5th year, and so it's 6 years when all.
Yeah, I think he's on like a 5-year, $100 million deal or something like that, but I could be wrong.
Comment coming in from India. Hi, Mark. I'm an Ohio State alumni in India now since 2012. I love my team, but it breaks my heart when we thrash everyone in the Big Ten and then end up losing in the postseason to other conferences. Well, that's a loaded question, or a loaded comment. I would have to say, when you make the playoff just about every year, unless you win the national championship, you're going to be losing at some point, as they have, yes. Making other postseason appearances, they've generally won those games. Look at the Fiesta Bowl appearance against Notre Dame, the Cotton Bowl against USC, the Rose Bowl against Washington. Urban Meyer was on top of winning postseason games. So if you're an elite, you're going to play the elite in these playoffs. Certainly as it stands right now with the 4 teams. But I understand what you're saying there. I don't understand necessarily the Big Ten portion of it as well, but it is what it is, as they say.
Ryan Day's next loss to a Big Ten team will be his first. So that's pretty impressive. In 2 years plus 1 game as a head coach, that Rutgers game in 18 went on his card as well. And then I was with, again, Tony's cohort, friend of mine, guy from Buckeye Scoop, and he's like, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but in 53 years, Ohio State's won 2 national championships, and the program is considered elite. And Alabama, seems to win it every other year. Alabama, quite frankly, seems to be on a level of its own, with Ohio State and Clemson right there with them. The being totally honest with you all,
Alabama under Saban.
Under Saban, yeah. So Ohio State is considered elite with 2 national championships in 53 years.
There was actually an article in ESPN, and because it was the paid tier, I didn't read it. But basically, I don't know if you guys saw this the other day. It was on the college football page. It basically said, what's the best job in college football? And they narrowed it down to Ohio State and Alabama. But the way they represented it, it was basically Saban, and it was Ohio State fill in the blank, whoever the coach is, which is the better job. I think points could be made on both sides.
Look at the hires over the last 2 decades, and you get your answer on which is the better job, because Alabama has hired guys like Rich Rodriguez, Mike Price,
Mike Shula.
Shula. So, and then you look at who
Mike
Ohio State. You look at and
did Rich Rod really have that job for 3 days and turn it down or something? Is that what happened, or what was that?
I don't know if it was that long, but they hired him.
Dennis
Franchione left for Texas A&M, left Alabama, if I recall, for Texas A&M. A step up, and so then you look at who Ohio State has hired since Woody Hayes. They brought in Earl Bruce was National Coach of the Year, and John Cooper was a hot prospect who had beaten Michigan. And Jim Tressel, 4 national championships, turned down Miami previously. And then you go and you get Urban Meyer. And even Luke Fickell in that 2011 season, right now, every head coach they've had since Woody is a Hall of Famer. Luke Fickell is kind of on a trajectory for something special as well.
If they had held on and beaten Georgia, he'd be making $8 million a year somewhere right now. I don't have any doubt about that. So it could still happen for him next year. I don't know, but he kind of enjoys it. I think at Cincinnati, he's got his own fiefdom down there, and
he's different.
Yeah, he's different, wired different. And
look how long he stayed at Ohio State.
They put this playoff to 12 teams. I know we were going to talk a little bit about playoff. He's got an opportunity to slide into the playoff. If he's got the best team in the American, maybe every other year or every third year or whatever. And, get to the Final 8, get to the Final 4, that'd be a huge accomplishment. For Cincinnati to be a preseason top 10 team, that's unheard of. I mean, that's just uncanny. So
I say let's hold off on the evaluation of Alabama football overall as a program and the staying power of Alabama outside of Nick Saban, because that was a long gap between Bear Bryant's last game in 1982 and Nick Saban in 2007. That's 25 years. And Alabama during that time was basically some combination of Penn State, Michigan level, tons of 9-3 seasons, lost to Auburn more than they beat Auburn, would win a conference championship once to twice a decade. That's what they were doing.
One national title in that run.
One national title, Gene Stallings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember Gene Stallings, the very first game I covered full-time was the 95 Citrus Bowl loss to Alabama, 24-17. And Stallings spoke with that drawl. It was hard to understand what he was saying. And he kept calling John Cooper Coach Cupper. I'm like, who the hell is this Cupper that he's talking about?
I was down south at the time covering Alabama football, so I was at all the Gene Stallings news conferences and interviewing the players on, I think it was on Tuesday. And actually, I still stands out to me, obviously, because I'm reciting it, that Gene Stallings was asked about Ohio State being intimidated playing Alabama. And Gene Stallings gave a great answer. He basically shook some people up to basically say, you're living in a silo to Ohio State. They're the Alabama up there. Like, they don't care about us, just like you don't care about them. You think we're this. Well, they think they're this. It's very comparable. They don't.
Cooper was on the
not a big deal
on the
to them.
verge of putting Ohio State back on top of the map at that point. Yeah, he was 1 or 2 years away from it.
One real quick last point on Luke Fickell. Not only do I think he can get them to the playoffs, I think he can get Cincinnati into the ACC or the Big 12 once we start getting into some realignment stuff. So there's that also to consider. If he wants to be a lifer there, it won't be in the AAC forever, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 would be well suited to take Cincinnati. The TV market is roughly, Mark, you would know this better. I know Columbus is like the 32nd biggest TV market, and I think Cincinnati Dayton is comparable to that. But it also gets you into Ohio, which, is a football crazy place to where Big 12 games would now be watched a little bit more in the state of Ohio as well. I don't know. Texas and Oklahoma, and for those schools to care about Cincinnati a whole lot,
They got to care about West Virginia at this point.
Do they care about West Virginia a whole lot? I don't know that they do.
I can't think that they do, but West Virginia is doing a decent job in that league. They're a mid-tier team to upper tier. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the playoff discussion. You guys let me know when you need to go. Again, I'm missing my timing in regards to when this was released, but Tony, we'll start with you in regards to what was your reaction on the 12 teams. We'll remind everyone it's the 6 highest ranked conference champions receive automatic bids. The 4 highest ranked conference champions. So you got to be a conference champion to get a bye, get the 4.
Yeah, I was always a proponent of the 8 team, but then listening to their explanation for the 12 team, I've come around now to like the 12 team more than the 8 team. We did talk last week about the not getting the quarterfinals on campuses being an issue, and I agree with you there. It would be great to watch an Ohio State playoff game in Columbus. Like, it would be great to watch to see Ohio State have to go to Clemson for the quarterfinals, and so I think that's maybe the biggest downside of this right now. And although the people deciding it, and I know there's been graphics like this is what the playoffs would have looked like each year if there was 12 teams, and that's completely bullcrap because the committee would still steer the top 12 just like they've steered the top 4. So they're going to massage it and maneuver it however they want. And when people say like Cincinnati would have hosted Georgia last year, no, there's no chance the committee is sending Georgia to Cincinnati in an 8-9 contest. It would have been Georgia going to Cincinnati. It would have been Cincinnati going to Georgia. And so that still is going to go on, which then leads into maybe do we get the computers back involved as a piece of this or something like that? So it's not just up to these 12 committee members, the newest committee member being a Notre Dame alum, by the way. But don't read into anything like that. But that's just my thoughts. I'm good with it. I like it. There are some things that I like that could be fixed and maybe will be addressed. They're actually meeting, I think, this week, and then they'll come up with some ideas or maybe some possible changes next week if need be. But let's do it. I'm looking forward to it.
I have a lot of major misgivings. First of all, wear and tear on the student athletes, and they're already talking about should these athletes be paid or not. Now you want some of them to play from playing 13 games a year to as many as 17 games. If you're lower, let's say your 9 seed goes 4 games deep into this and also played in a conference championship game, that's 17 games. And I just don't know how you justify that without coming up with some kind of pay-to-play scenario. Without pay-to-play scenario, let's say I'm Sean Wade, and I just throw his name out there, or anybody who may be projected in the first round. Do I really want to go through a 3-team playoff when I'm already a top 5 NFL draft pick? Do I really need to do that? I mean, seriously? I am all for raw, let's go team and give it the old college try. Well, I did for 3 years. I played 39 games here. My body of work kind of speaks for itself. Good luck. I'll be pulling for you. If you let me down the sideline, I'll rub your shoulders, I'll shove you into the game, but I'm probably not going to play because why should I? A chance at immortality, to be considered a legend in Norman, Oklahoma or Athens, Georgia for the rest of my life. Who gives the crap?
I understand that, Steve, but if they're taking this approach, and I'm not saying that they won't, because we've already seen it, obviously, with the bowl games.
Guys are opting out.
Why wouldn't they opt out with 3 games left in the regular season and say, I don't want to get beat up the last 3 games of the season? And
I think we're up to see anything going forward, guys. We saw guys opt out of the entire season last year under the guise of COVID, and if Micah Parsons didn't need to play another down for Penn State to be a middle of the first round pick, what does that tell you? The NFL's not holding it against them. Here are some of my other major misgivings. 1, Notre Dame can't earn a top 4 seed. That's bullcrap. And I'll tell you why. If you put them in, if they are the only undefeated team, and I know they had an undefeated team that got obliterated in this playoff twice, or once the BCS and once the playoff. Let's just say, for our sake of argument, they have the very best team in America. Better than Alabama, better than Clemson, 2 touchdowns better than every other team in America. And just because they're not in a conference, we can't give them the 1 seed. They have to take the 5 seed. You know who that screws? That screws the 4 seed, who has to play them in the semifinals. It screws the 4 seed who play them in the quarterfinals. It screws the number 1 seed, the number 2 team, who you've bumped up to number 1 artificially, and has to play them in the semifinals. Would you do this in the NCAA basketball tournament? Heavens no. You seed the teams 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 based on how good they are. Not, they're not in a conference. They only played 12 games. Believe me, their 1 through 12 is equal to Ohio State's 2 through 13, and we'll just dump out Akron from Ohio State. That never happened. That's your 13th game. Don't give me this data point bull crap. If again, sake of argument, we've seen Notre Dame teams, people are going to say, oh, no way Notre Dame will ever have a team that good. Believe me, you do this, and there's going to be a year where they stack this bracket, and it's completely out of whack, and the teams that are seated in the wrong place get screwed because they play a team that's better than the seed that they've been given. I don't agree with that, not one bit. And I'm not a Notre Dame person. I'm just talking out of fairness. That's not fair to the other teams in the bracket. If you don't seed it properly, it's not fair to everybody.
But they would have to play Notre Dame eventually.
Yeah, well, I know, I get that. But should you have to play them in the semifinals instead of the championship game, it makes a little bit of a difference. So
why doesn't Notre Dame join a conference?
Why do they have to? Why do they have to? It's the United States of America. I can associate
exactly.
With
so the United States of America could say we're ranking conference champions 1 through 4. You want to play in our? You want to play in our tournament?
That's potentially a flawed system.
You want to play in the French Open? Then you're going to meet in front of the media. If you don't want to play in the French Open, don't meet in front of the media.
Have we ever had a clamor where we've wondered how would the 9th place team at the end of the conference championship games? I love our teams that are 1 through 4. It's going to be a great playoff. But damn, I wish we had team number 9, 10, 11, and 12. Boy, I just wish we could have seen what Iowa State could have done. I have never once in my life worried about in football whether teams ranked 9, 10, 11, or 12 were going to contend for the national championship.
Well,
because that's probably a 3-loss team. There's probably a 3-loss team in there.
You're generally right. You're overwhelming. You're overwhelmingly right, Steve. I'll bring up a scenario in 2019 where the 14th ranked team in the country could have played for a national championship, and that was Alabama. So to Tony's point, even though he said my videos are crap, he didn't say my videos were crap. He said anybody applying the 12 teams to the so I'm in the process of doing that. But I do say each one of those videos, Tony, we have no idea what the committee would do if they were faced with, for example, in 2014, they would have, with the same record, if they would have held true, because understand, people, right now, everybody cares about the first 4. And then if they want to make somebody feel good by ranking them 7th instead of 11th, big deal. They can do whatever they want. But once we get to where the top 12, basically the top 12, you may need to elevate a group of 5 champion, as would have had to happen a number of times here. That basically those are the ones that are going to count, and then it's going to matter whether they've got somebody 12 or 13. So imagine this happening in 2014. These teams had like records, 3 losses. Ole Miss, Arizona, Kansas State. They make the playoff. Ole Miss, Arizona, Kansas State. Georgia and Clemson don't make the playoff. They're out. and they got the same record. Is that really going to happen? In 2019, Alabama left out with the same record. I'm not talking about Alabama's 8-4. They're 10-2, and Baylor's 11-2. Wisconsin's 10-3. Florida, Penn State, Utah, they're getting in. Alabama's not getting in. Probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I think reputation's going to be dictated in this, and conference affiliation probably a little bit as well. It just is getting too unwieldy to me, and I'm not a big proponent of the other bowl games, like let's save the Citrus Bowl and the Outback Bowl.
They're playoff games.
But the thing is, the Rose Bowl that has been Big Ten, Pac-12, whenever it wasn't a playoff game, that's done because it's probably going to be a quarterfinal or semifinal site. You're not going to be able to protect that as January 1st at 5:00 if it's not in the right year or whatever for rotation. And that's a minor consideration to me. I just think you're getting too unwieldy. I just think that they're overthinking this. It should be conference. If you have to keep the conference championship games, fine, keep them. And just give me 8 teams with a non-Power 5 mixed in, either as the 3 seed or the 8 seed, however Cincinnati or Boise figures in, put them in there and go play it and do it on home sites the first or second weekend of December with 4 games. And then you make all 40 bowl pairings after those 4 games are played. You let the quarterfinal losers go off and play in the Outback Bowl, and you match up the 2 semifinal games on January 1st. And here's the thought. Okay, the Rose Bowl can always be at 5:00, but why can't the semifinals be then at noon and 8:00 on January 1st, the day they should be, and, go on with life from there? I just don't. That's a minor thing for me, but there's no reason why this year the semifinals are on the 31st. I don't understand that. I don't get that. And, those are the 2 biggest bowl games other than the championship game. They should be on January 1st. And then championship, this thing they're talking about, they want it to go till mid to late January into the second semester. Are you kidding me? I don't understand it. This isn't the NFL. We don't need a 6-month season. I don't know. There's a lot of things wrong. If I could be the commissioner of college football, the championship game would be played on a Saturday night at 7:00 where everybody could see it. And if the NFL wants to schedule a game against it, crap on them, whatever. We're playing our game at this time, 7:00 on this night, and when people can see it. This Monday night stuff, only the ardent fans of the 2 teams care. The casual fans turn it off at halftime and go on and go to bed and go to work. I mean, I don't know.
Did I go on my rant
when the
last
games
week
is as bad as Alabama, Ohio State?
There shouldn't be any buys in this thing either. Get rid of buys. There shouldn't be buys. What do you guys think of these buys?
That doesn't make any sense either.
They're unfair.
That's going to be political.
You okay with buys,
Tony?
Totally
political. I mean,
I don't like the committee. They changed. They use the logic however they want to justify where they want to put people. I think a bye is a good way to reward the regular season, but the people doing the rewarding, you can't trust. So that's the issue that I have.
Ding 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 ding. We got a winner.
I think this is a way to keep the importance of the regular season intact and to reward the teams because you have people saying, well, they're going to sit starters and this and nobody's going to sit starters. The Iron Bowl is not going to be missing their starting quarterback. Like Ohio State's not going to sit CJ Stroud against Michigan. Like all of these guys are still going to play. But the committee deciding and still manipulating things, like go back to the 2014 thing, Ohio State, as to why you can't go necessarily line by line on Ohio State wouldn't have needed to put 59 points on Wisconsin that year, and so where do they end up in that ranking? 8, 9, and so that would change the top 12 as well, and Does the committee even if they do put 59, does the committee still feel like, well, we could still put justify Baylor or Oklahoma State or whoever it was in there, and it wouldn't be so bad. Yeah, TCU. So that's some revisionist stuff. But yeah, the buys, I'm okay with it, the idea of it, but the way it's going to be put together, I'm untrustworthy.
I think there's several things at play. And first of all, you're going from 3 games in the playoff, which is the 2 semifinals and the 1, to 11 games. What television network is going to have the stomach to do that? Even the NCAA tournament is so big that CBS and TBS or Turner, whatever name they go under now, they have to come together to swallow the rights fee on that. And they even split up, the Final Four and the championship between the two. And it's a great win for both networks, obviously, because they're re-upped for the next 12 years on that deal. They love that. But I don't know if ESPN is going to have the stomach to pay double for an additional 8 games. I don't know. That remains to be seen. So that's the first thing. Is this a knee-jerk reaction because they all lost their shirt last year because of COVID? Ohio State's out $60 million annually, and I don't think going from 4 teams to 12 teams is going to enrich everybody to where they're going to make up their money lost from COVID. But is this a knee-jerk reaction? And finally, name, image, and likeness. We're throwing you a bone on name, image, and likeness. You all get to play 3-4 more games.
No, 100%. I agree with that part. The reason they're okay with asking more of the players is because the players are going to be getting more. On the teleconference with the committee last week, that was asked, and it wasn't answered in any sufficient form. So they're totally okay with asking more because the players will be getting more. So I agree with Steve. Had a couple other things there I wanted to address, but I have since forgotten them since he dropped off. That I completely disagreed with, and I wish I could. Now that he's back, I wish I could think of them, but I can't.
Here's the deal with the buys. And if anybody watches me on a regular basis, they're going to get sick of hearing this 18 times, but here it comes. I'll be as succinct as possible. These why buys don't work in collegiate athletics, or at least in this situation. In the NFL, if the Kansas City Chiefs go 14-2 and the Baltimore Ravens go 11-5 and they both win divisions, well, the Chiefs have objectively earned a bye. They play similar, very razor-thin differences between the two schedules. Basically, they play in the same conference. Probably 10 or 11 of their 16 games are exact, and the other 4 or 5 are so comparable that team earned the bye. In this situation, we've given all the power of college football to 13 people to decide who makes it, who gets buys, and what do they know that the rest of us don't know. And they wield all the power. Okay, so when they determine somebody is a bye, let's say Alabama gets their bye, and they're going to play the winner of Oklahoma and Oregon. All right. Well, first of all, believe me, it's going to happen every year. The argument is going to shift from who's in and who's out, 4 and 5, to who got these buys and who got screwed out of a bye. Because when it's the day after the conference championship games, it's Selection Sunday, and Alabama knows, okay, we're playing Oklahoma or Oregon. Okay, we got 3 weeks to prepare. And Oklahoma and Oregon, well, they got to go play a football game against a really good opponent. So, number one, obviously, the advantage to having a bye is you can't lose while the other team has a 50% chance of winning. So that's the most obvious. Number two, your team's going to have to play a really difficult opponent, get beat up and bruised up and nicked up. Number three, you could lose a player that's not going to be able to play against Alabama, or maybe 2, who knows? And then number 4, the aspect of it I don't think it's talked about is while Oklahoma and Oregon in this example have to be tunnel visioned, focused on each other, and all their game prep has to be just locked in on each other, Alabama gets to prepare for both of them for 3 weeks and then actually gets to see them play and have that game tape as well. That's a huge advantage.
Good.
The timing of this whole thing, and that's what I'm saying. If you don't give them if you're doing this on a tight timeline, your holidays are all screwed up. I mean, we already screw up the whole year for these kids, so let's screw up their Christmas holiday even more. And I know that's a very minor byproduct of being part of a nationally televised college football game that you'll remember for the rest of your life. I know there's a trade-off there. To me, the fairness issue that you bring up is definitely true. And again, all I heard from Ohio State the last 2 or 3 years when they've been put in this onerous situation is we're under the gun on recruiting. We're under the gun on game prep. We're under the gun on holiday. We're under the gun on exams. We're under the gun on this. We're under the gun on that. This month of December is a ball buster for everybody connected with this sport because it begins with exams for the kids. It begins with conference championship games. And that's another thing Urban Meyer always pointed out. All of our rivals including our rival in the Big Ten Conference, their coaches got to go out on the road the first week of December and go glad hand every recruit under the sun and go spend time in 77 high schools and in the homes of 80 prospects. And they were game planning for Wisconsin or Northwestern and practicing every day. They couldn't do that. So, and then they had to sign those kids a week or two later, So the calendar of college football, that they are putting so much pressure on all of these people to produce on the field September, October, November, and now December, plus recruit, plus academics, plus the holidays. I don't see the need for this. I just don't see the need for this. There's plenty of television content out there. And I think an 18 playoff with proper rest and time between each round, to me, I don't know. We got to fix the sport some way or the other. There's a finite number of Saturdays from Labor Day to Thanksgiving. I don't know. Something has to give somewhere. Either give back a regular season game and get it back to 11, or do away with the conference championships, and which are somewhat redundant and needless. This came up. Okay, you have a situation like, a few years ago, the Curtis Samuel game, whatever year that was, 16 maybe, and also back to 06, where it was 1 versus 2 in 06, and then it was 2 versus 3 in 16. You have the two best teams in your league are playing each other the last week of the regular season to win the same division, and one of them is not going to be able to play in the conference championship game the following week. Do you do away with that to where they may have to play the number 20 team in the country the following week in the conference championship game? Do you do away with divisions altogether and just do like the Big 12 does and make it the Texas-Oklahoma Invitational every year and, just go like that? Or what do you do? Because divisions can work against your conference in getting teams into the playoffs potentially.
In those instances, though, would Michigan be an at-large then? Would they even
probably with one loss?
Like, yes. Do they benefit from staying in the same? But you look at the top 12 over the last few years, over the last 5-10 years. There's all kinds of 3-loss teams in that top 12. We're going to have 3-loss teams in a 12-team playoff. It's
I
going to
doubt
happen.
Michigan, even after losing to OSU, I doubt Michigan even dropped to 6. Because it was a freaking double overtime game on the road. So if they dropped more than 2 spots, that's I don't know. They outplayed Ohio State 7 ways till Tuesday and lost. Yeah. And somehow Captain Comeback, he found a way.
Like all of this, there's an argument for it and an argument against it. And the argument for it is for getting rid of divisions is now you can play your 2 best teams against each other. The argument against it is you don't need to, because that second best team it can get in. Yeah.
There are 3-loss teams in the playoff every year if you apply it to the previous playoff seasons. Yeah. Cheryl thinks I'm only smarter than half the guys in the committee. Man, Cheryl. Actually, you know what? They're all legitimately smarter than I am. It's just they've been given a system that's broken, and there's no way to really get it right.
Mark, if you think about it, half of America is just above average intelligence. The other half is below average intelligence. So, and as our buddy Jim Davidson likes to say, Steve, half of all people have, on average, less than 2 arms. So,
oh my God,
Tony puts it in perspective. That's why we have you here.
No, the average American has less than two arms. So there you go.
It's true. All right. For Tony Gerdeman and Steve Hillwagon, you can catch Tony on Buckeye Scoop, of course. Where else can we catch you, Tony? Of course, you got your podcast.
Yeah, Buckeye Weekly Podcast drops on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Today's episode, in fact, my cohort Tom Orr and I went over all of the detractors of the 12-team playoff to tell them why they are wrong, or why they shouldn't be so upset.
I like that it affords opportunities to teams that deserve. I like just, again, when it went from 2 to 4, people asked me, do you like it? Well, it affords more opportunities. That's what's good about it. The rest of it sucks.
The details are what's going to kill this, because they're not going to get enough people to agree on this. I don't think 8. I wonder if they floated 12 just so they could get 8. I don't know, but
although there's a report that they were set on 8 a year ago, and they just sat on it and kept it silent. I will also say, when we talked on the teleconference, they said like 7 years into this, the plan was to revisit it. That was the plan from day one, was to revisit this in 7 years. It just happened that, it happens after a pandemic when there's this need for rejuvenation of money. Yeah.
Yeah. They all lost their shirt, and I don't think going from 4 to 12 is going to put all that much money in the pockets of each individual school. Maybe another, could it be worth, out of 130 schools? And again, do they stilt this for the Power 5? Do they get a bigger payout based on number of teams in it per conference, or how are they going to split the money? That's another question no one's really talked about. And again, as I said to Mark, what television network is going to have the stomach to put up $1 billion a year to televise this thing, or whatever it's going to cost? I don't know, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I don't know that you can solve all of your problems just by giving us this wonky 12-team playoff. I don't know. And this is all because there's Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State fatigue. I don't know. LSU wasn't Clemson, Alabama, or Ohio State, and, yet it's all Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State. So who knows?
Well, we've talked about this maybe on this show, and I've talked about this on other shows. If you're picking the national champion, and I give you Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama, or the field, who are you taking?
Clemson,
I'm
Alabama,
taking the
or Ohio
3.
State.
Yes.
Yeah, taking the 3.
Everybody is. So that's a problem.
I mean, some people would have gambled on Joe Burrow, but
he's in Cincinnati now.
Wasn't Joe Burrow in the preseason either. He became Joe Burrow when he went to Texas in week 2 and de-pantsed them. I mean, that was when he became Joe Burrow, and that was just the start, of what was an incredible run. But
well, right now that 3 versus the field is 6-1 in the playoff for 7 years. There you go.
Boom.
All right. For Steve, for Tony, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, our Ohio State show. Please lock it in, and we'll see you next week.